Tonight, residents in Oshawa are calling on the city to do more to deal with coyotes.
Everybody was fleeing the park, and one of our neighbors that she was there with was carrying her in her arms.
A father says his young daughter is afraid to go outside after being bitten by a coyote. What Oshawa City Council plans to do after an increasing number of attacks and sightings in the area. Plus,
when our officers arrived on scene, they found that both the victim and the suspect had fled the school.
Tense moments at a North York high school. A suspect is now in custody after a stabbing inside the school that placed the building under lockdown this afternoon. And
this is an extra tool to keep our children in the classroom.
the province announcing today COVID-19 rapid tests are coming to some Ontario schools. We'll have the details. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Residents in an Oshawa neighborhood say they're worried for the safety of their children after a 3-year-old boy was bitten by a coyote last week. It was the second coyote attack in the area in less than 4 months. As Greg Ross tells us, some are calling on the city to do more before a child is seriously hurt.
I heard this scream and I turned around to seeing this coyote in the air jumping.
Berlin French says that coyote was just steps from her 3-year-old son Marcus, who was playing in her backyard last Tuesday night. She was able to get to Marcus quickly and pull him away, but realized soon after the coyote had gotten to him first.
We noticed that he did get nicked. He got bitten. It broke through the skin.
Marcus had to be taken to hospital where he was given rabies shots. He was back again tonight for another round of shots.
And I think that's probably going to be the most traumatizing part of it all, is remembering the shots.
Marcus is not the first child to be attacked in recent months in this North Oshawa community.
There's scars on my daughter's groin area from where the coyote had bit her.
Joe Lefebvre says his 6-year-old daughter was attacked while playing in a nearby park back in July. He says it's time for the city to step in and do something.
We're afraid to walk the streets now.
You ever seen anything like this before?
Never, ever.
Jane Hurst is not only the city councillor for the area, she's lived in the same neighborhood for more than 30 years. Oshawa councillors voted yesterday in favor of developing a coyote response strategy. Hurst says in addition to educating the community on dealing with coyotes, they're looking for advice from other communities and wildlife experts on how to mitigate the problem.
Consulting with the wildlife specialists, the ministry, the involvement with DRPS, consulting with a licensed professional hunter and trapper. You hire the people that do that for a living.
But many members of the community are concerned the city isn't working quickly enough to protect residents.
Yes, we're going to wait for them to do more, but what if something happens in that time?
The city is advising residents to report coyote sightings, and already this year they've received more than 500. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A high school near Highway 401 and the Don Valley was placed under lockdown this afternoon after a stabbing. Toronto police say the victim, believed to be a student of the school, was seriously injured.
When our officers arrived on scene, they found that both the victim and the suspect had fled the school. And our officers began investigating and reviewing some video. They confirmed that a stabbing had taken place in the school. And the school then transitioned to a hold and secure, which again is the exact right thing to do.
Police say it happened around 1:30 this afternoon inside George S. Henry Academy. The victim walked into a local hospital on their own and was then transported to a different trauma center with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. Police say the victim is now in stable condition. Officers also located and arrested a suspect, also believed to be a student at the school. Toronto police are asking anyone with information to contact them. The province announced today it is rolling out rapid tests for COVID-19 to Ontario schools. However, the tests will only be available in areas that are considered COVID hotspots, and it will be up to local health authorities to decide whether to offer them. Lorena Redekop has more details.
Rapid testing will soon be available for school children who are unvaccinated and have no symptoms in areas deemed high risk. Local medical officers will make the call on where to distribute the tests.
If we're seeing a school that's in trouble, that's having consistent cases, that's at risk for closure, this is an extra tool to keep our children in the classroom.
Previously, the government spoke out against rapid testing for students as parents acquired the tests on their own. Now the chief medical officer has changed his mind, as long as the testing is targeted.
When you apply these tests in a low-risk setting, you'll find that you'll get more false positives than true positives, and you'll send people for PCR testing as a result, and they'll be off school because they have to wait for the result.
Today, the province added another 250 COVID cases connected to schools. And by far, the most outbreaks are in the education sector, with 157.
We should be rapid testing. Of course, they're not perfect. Of course, it's not a silver bullet, but it certainly can be, if used appropriately, a very, very helpful tool in creating a safer indoor environment, like a safer school.
Today, the opposition asked what took so long.
Why didn't the Premier do his job and have real testing in place in September?
We have followed the Ontario Science Table recommendation and adopted the updated advice by the Chief Medical Officer.
The NDP have another change they'd like to see to keep schools safe: mandatory staff vaccinations.
Teachers and other staff in the schools, as well as healthcare workers. Why? Because they're dealing with, on a daily basis, day in and day out, the most vulnerable amongst us.
But the government says it's not needed.
In the absence of being vaccinated, you will be tested every week, twice a week, without exception. That is the responsible course of action to reduce the spread.
The rapid testing is optional. It'll be up to parents to decide whether their children take part. For any who test positive, they'll have to take a PCR test to confirm the result. The rapid testing will start next week. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
As we prepare for the upcoming Thanksgiving long weekend, provincial officials have some guidance for us. Indoor gatherings without masks are okay if everyone is vaccinated.
If you're having family over and you're completely vaccinated, if you feel comfortable removing your masks, that would be absolutely appropriate in a fully vaccinated group.
If both unvaccinated and vaccinated people are gathering, Dr. Moore recommends keeping masks on indoors. He adds that groups should still follow Ontario's capacity limits of 100 people outdoors and 25 people indoors. Moore says the province will announce its full guidance on Thanksgiving and Halloween later this week. Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, the sun not making much of an appearance today.
Yeah, what a battle for the sun trying to break through those clouds. And we had a few little areas. I mean, consider yourself so lucky if in the mid-afternoon you were already getting a little bit of sunshine coming through. There just wasn't much of it, certainly not for the city. But having a look at the daytime highs, well, there's a nugget of good news, is that we're still looking, okay, daytime highs not a big deal, but the overnight lows, well, above seasonal, and that trend carries on. In fact, we're going to see things even warming it up a little bit further. So a look at your numbers from today, and then what's ahead? Well, we do have a little bit of low-level cloud to deal with, meaning a bit of patchy fog, southwestern Ontario and around portions of the west end here of Lake Ontario. But in the morning, it's going to be kind of a variable day. Yes, there's still going to be some cloud cover in there, although we'll primarily get into partly cloudy skies overnight tonight, but it will break up and it just becomes sort of variable through the day. We're going to get more sunshine mixing with the cloud cover. In some areas it'll be a little stubborn, and then it's not till tomorrow night southwestern Ontario we'll see a few showers starting to roll in. We'll talk more about rain in the forecast with the holiday weekend ahead, but overnight tonight 14 and then tomorrow 19 Kelda for the high, with some areas going into the 20s in southern Ontario.
Thanks, Colette. It's getting harder to afford a house in the city. Data from the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board shows a more than 18% price increase year over year for GTA homes. Now, realtors say it's reached a crisis and all levels of government need to rethink and revamp housing strategies. Jessica Ng has this story.
You know, whether you're talking about the low-rise side of the market or the high-rise side of the market, we've seen tighter market conditions, more competition between buyers, and upward pressure on home prices.
The chief market analyst for the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board says several factors are causing home prices to surge in and around the city, including 34% fewer homes being put up for sale. The board's new report shows prices for homes rose 18.3% year over year to an average of nearly $1.14 million. To put that in perspective, in the city of Toronto, the average home price gained close to $70,000. Homes in the rest of the GTA saw an over $230,000 jump. And it's not just houses.
So there was certainly a period where the condo market was slower than the overall market last year, and that's really coming back.
The price jump represents one of the biggest increases for a September on record.
The 18.3% is, a shocking number, but it's a number that we've been watching happen. People's wages have not kept up. Therefore, we have an affordability crisis.
Leslie Gaynor says government should explore new ways to help people get on the home ownership ladder, such as allowing people to have multiple units in properties and lending practices that look beyond income.
The word I hear over and over and over again is I'm discouraged. I think I'm shut out. I will never own.
The biggest change is a nearly 29% jump in prices for detached homes. With provincial and municipal elections looming in 2022, industry insiders say housing needs to be at the forefront of candidates' and constituents' priorities. Daniel Majid of the Advocacy Centre for Tenants Ontario says Toronto City Council's decision to defer legalization of rooming houses just adds to the crisis.
Decades worth of poor decision making on behalf of different levels of government has resulted in a shortage of affordable housing units in the city. And if the housing isn't there to support, our diverse populations, then Toronto will no longer be able to call itself a diverse city.
Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Conservative MPs gathered today in Ottawa for their first caucus since their election loss to the incumbent Liberals. After the meeting wrapped up, party leader Erin O'Toole spoke about taking responsibility.
We are all disappointed with the result in the election, no one more so than me, which is why today we announced that Mr. Cumming, the outgoing MP, will be conducting the review. That review will involve our caucus, our National Council, the Conservative Party, and the Fund to make sure we do a 360 review on where we fell short, what we did right, so that we can win an election that could be here in the next 18 months.
He says he's looking forward to the upcoming review chaired by James Cumming, the incumbent MP who lost in Edmonton Centre. But O'Toole says he has enough support to stay on as leader. The Conservatives also voted today in favour of a measure that gives MPs power to fire the leader and launch another leadership race. Welcome back. NDP leader Andrea Horwath and Liberal MPP John Fraser introduced private members' bills today, both calling on the province to establish safe zones around hospitals, schools, and childcare centres. This following protests outside hospitals across the country last month against vaccine mandates and other public health measures.
These protests were disruptive to patients and visitors trying to access the hospital. It was demoralizing for staff who have been working on the front lines since the beginning of this pandemic. Healthcare workers and patients needing care should not be blocked, should not be harassed. They should not be the target of these protests.
Fraser says if passed, his bill would prevent protests from happening within 150 meters of a facility. He adds that Quebec, BC, and Alberta have already taken similar action. Ontario officials say while they will consider all new legislation, the responsibility is on police to prevent protesters from harassing healthcare workers or blocking entrances to facilities. A former PC member of the provincial parliament who was kicked out of the Ford government because of his stance on mandatory vaccines is now also out of his role as deputy speaker.
I oppose mandatory vaccines, especially those where one's livelihood is in fact affected. I oppose vaccine passports because that will create a two-tier society, putting the vaccinated against the unvaccinated.
Rick Nichols was removed as the PC MPP for Chatham-Kent Leamington in August for failing to show proof of vaccination or a medical exemption. That was something the Premier had asked all caucus members to do. Today, Nichols announced he's leaving the role of Deputy Speaker. But at the press conference, he acknowledged that his decision was made after learning the Conservative Party had already selected his replacement. Nichols will sit as an independent MPP. He said he does not plan to run in next year's provincial election. Well, nonprofits have struggled immensely during this pandemic. To give them a boost, the province is injecting cash into the heritage, sport, tourism, and culture sector. As Natalie Collada reports, the announcement made today will see tens of millions of dollars handed over to hundreds of not-for-profits.
Perhaps never has it been more important to reap the healing effects of nature. That after 18 months of health restrictions and gathering limits and shutdowns, even Toronto's botanical gardens are feeling a financial squeeze.
Whereas we normally took in about $1.5 million a year in these revenues, we're down to certainly less than half that. The nonprofit, when you lose that much of your normal revenue stream, you worry about just staying alive.
Today, a seed of hope.
This is the sunniest day we have seen in a year and a half.
And while we may not be in the business of saving lives, we have been in the business of saving livelihoods.
The Gardens is one of more than 600 nonprofits in the heritage, sport, tourism, and culture industries, today receiving $46 million in support from the provincial government.
We really want to make sure that these iconic institutions that benefit our society not only survive but thrive.
Pre-COVID, the government says the sector contributed nearly $75 billion to the province's economy.
And when you think about $75 billion, I want to leave you with this. That's larger than the GDP of Manitoba and larger than mining, agriculture, and forestry put together in the province of Ontario.
It's big business and now big relief for events like the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair, which plans to return in 2022, celebrating a milestone.
When people come from around the world, across the country, or throughout the province of Ontario to the 100th anniversary of the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair, they will be in awe.
And continue.
Keep people working, keep the place going, and look for a brighter day this coming spring.
Natalie Collada, CBC News, Toronto.
You're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline. Partly cloudy this evening, clearing overnight. Currently, it is 17 degrees downtown. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, we'll actually see some sun tomorrow and temperatures staying quite mild.
Yeah, we are really looking at those temperatures, kind of doing us a favor here as we go forward into October. Now, the sky conditions, those have been a little trickier, right? But that temperature trend, not just with the daytime highs, but especially the overnight lows well above seasonal. We're going to get some vitamin D coming in here, sort of variable skies through the day. And there are going to be times when there is more cloud cover, but we'll see some sun coming back in here too. And that'll be nice to brighten the skies a little bit. At the holiday weekend, risk for some rain showers. Yes, it is there. It does seem like a system will just start to poke in with some lighter showers on Friday, but then hang around into Saturday. That's just kind of how it's looking at this time. And as you know, we're going to keep looking at that as we get closer, because then our models become more accurate and I can give you more confidence in that forecast. But here's a look at that forecast for us through the overnight. Some areas, a little bit of patchy fog kind of around the lakeshore. We'll get into some lower cloud, but even more so that risk into southwestern Ontario. Into Wednesday, still spots with lots of cloud cover, but also clearing areas that we get into too. And that's what I mean when I say variable skies. It really is that thing. They're variable through the day. So sometimes clouds kind of winning, sometimes sun winning. We'll see the cloud winning more than the sun in many cases. Then it's tomorrow evening, start to see into southwestern Ontario a little bit of wet weather, but Thursday still looking pretty fine. Back around the Golden Horseshoe, a little more cloud covered into cottage country. And then Friday, lighter stuff, heavier to the north, but lighter showers moving in. And that's kind of where we're watching as we get closer to that holiday weekend. 14-year low tonight in Windsor, 24 for the high. Yes, southwestern Ontario getting some twos in there to start your figures for your temperature, but overnight tonight it is mild as well here. St. Catharines, even you into the teens. And we're looking at tomorrow an easterly breeze, not terribly strong, but at times that may just keep your temperature down a little bit in Hamilton, I'm thinking there. Toronto 19, Thursday 20, and then there it is into the weekend. We'll see Sunday at this time still looking cloudy but dry. So lots to talk about there as we go through the week, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. Finally tonight, the Toronto Zoo and Toronto Symphony Orchestra are collaborating on what they each do best: animals and music. Zoofany is a digital concert being filmed on site at the Toronto Zoo, combining the sounds of animals with performances from TSO musicians. The final product will be delivered to schools next month, but we have a sneak peek for you tonight.
It's the next morning. The giraffes are leaving on their walk, and the mother looks back and winks at us as we're watching, and that's where you get the da 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 dee da 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 wink da da da. We've never done anything like this, and for people our vintage to be doing something like this is like, this is fun. This is a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we actually started talks, and we're thinking during the pandemic, how do we build bridges to people who can't get out, can't get to the orchestra, can't get to their zoo? And from that, we have creative new music and a student program we think teachers are going to love. You know what? I've been watching, and clearly the giraffes are enjoying it. They've come up right to the front, enjoying their browse, looking relaxed, displaying those behaviors we're looking for, and our guests also really appreciate this edition.
In Zoofany, Tim and I play a piece, it's called Bass Duet Number 10. It's subtitled Mother and Calf. And the first section is just the giraffes walking around, reaching up, as you see them, up for their food. The second part, you hear the baby giraffe theme. And in the third section of the music that you'll hear is a low humming, because at night, giraffes at night will herd together and they hum low tones.
So in this case, for the first piece, giraffe were the inspiration for the piece that was written by one of our musician sons, and we will be looking for more feedback of what people want to hear about and what symphonies they want to hear from their zoo.
I love it. That's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.